Welcome to this tutorial brought to you by River City Graphics. Today I'll be showing you how to create a simple website in Flash. So to get started, we're going to open up Flash, and we're going to be creating an Actionscript 3 document. So I'm going to click that. And then the first thing I'm going to do is just adjust the size of the stage. So I'm going to take and click on Size, click on Edit, and then take and change it to 950 pixels by 600 pixels. And I'm just going to change the background color to black as well. So the next thing that we need to do is create our layers. So I already have one layer. I'm going to create the new layer button, or click it down here in order to create two more layers. And on the top layer, I'm just going to call it AS for Actionscript. And the next one, I'm going to double click and call it Content. And then the last one, I'm just going to call it BG for Background. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to do is zoom out. So I'm going to go out to 50%. And I'm going to be on the background layer, and we're going to be creating the background. So the first thing we need to do is just drag out a rectangle over our background. So I'm going to grab the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to take and line it up with the corner here. Drag it out, make it the same size as the stage. Alright, so now we have a solid gray background. So what we're going to do is just click on this, and then we're going to go down to the little paint bucket. So we're going to be able to change the color of this, and I'm going to click on the gradient down here that's a radial gradient. So it's the second one over at the very bottom. So now what I'm going to do is go down into the third tool down for me, and underneath the free transform tool you'll see a gradient transform tool. So we're going to go to that, and for the radial gradient it's going to bring up a circle and allow us to take and move the center point of that gradient elsewhere. So what I'm going to do is move that to the very top so that it basically cuts it in half, so we have it kind of coming down from the top. So it gives it a pretty cool little effect there. So what I'm going to do is change the colors for this because it's a little bit bright, having it straight from white to black. So I'm going to go up to the color palette. If you don't have that, you can go to Window and then Color, but I have mine right here. I'm going to double click on the white swatch here and go over to this little circle, and it's a little color picker, and I'm just going to drag down the white color here on the side to something that's a little less harsh, and just click OK. And that gives us a little bit nicer effect so that it's a little bit easier once we have stuff that we're going to be reading. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to do is just take and lock this background layer. So just click, you can see that you have a little eye here, a lock, and then a little box, and make sure you click the lock for the background layer so that we're not selecting that while we're making other things. It's really annoying because this is underneath everything, so you want to make sure to lock that. So we're going to go up to the content layer and start adding in some stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is add our little title for our header. So I'm just going to grab the text tool, make sure it's on static text. I just have Arial Black at 38 point font. I'm just going to type in my website. You can type in whatever you want. You can put a logo up here, which I would recommend, but I'm just going to do this for now. We'll make this text white. Make sure it stands out and you guys can read it. So we're just going to put that up there, and then the next thing that I'm going to do is just grab the line tool, and we're going to add a little area for our menu, or our navigation. So I'm just going to take and select a color for that, which is going to be white. I have a stroke set of 1, so we're going to make that 1.5, and that should be pretty good. And what I'm going to do is just take and drag all the way across, and you can see that you can put it wherever you want, so you just hold Shift and you'll be able to make a straight line. Just going to do that. And I'm going to do another one, and I'm just going to zoom into 100%, and you can see that we got this right here. So if I take my direct selection tool, I'll be able to select this and then move this entire line up. You want to be careful when you're moving around shapes and lines and things like that with the selection tool, because you can see if I go over part of it, it selects just that piece. So if you were to move that, then it would break up your line, and it's pretty frustrating. So for shapes, it's better to use the sub-selection tool, which is the white one right here. In Photoshop, it's called the direct selection tool, but here it's sub-selection. So if you select that, it'll select the entire line. So the next thing that we're going to need to do is actually add in our menu items. So what I'm going to do is just grab the text tool, and we're going to take and size this down a little bit. We want the title to be the biggest thing, so we're going to make these probably about 24 point. Again, I'm just trying to make something for you guys to just see aesthetically. This isn't going to be perfect or a graphic design masterpiece, but just so you guys can get the idea. It's going to function well, so you guys can design it however you want. So anyway, I'm just going to type in well, I was going to type in it, okay. 24 point. Alright. Alright, so I have home, and that's going to be our first button. Going to make another one, and we're going to call it about. Going to make another one and call it services. And you can make these whatever you want depending on what your website is, and then I'll just make another one called contact. So these are just some mock things that you would actually need for a website. So what I'm going to do is just try and position these in here. And a little design element idea that I like to use for websites and things like that is just go to your text tool and just click, and then what you're going to want to do is hold shift, and it's right underneath your backspace key. It's also the backslash or the forward slash and the backslash. It's the backslash. If you hold shift and hit that, then you'll get just a vertical line, and that makes a pretty nice little aesthetic element. So you can take that and place those just to kind of space things out a little bit. So you can do that right here, and you can use your align palette and everything to get these pieces of text to make sure that they're all at the same height and everything. So I'm just going to copy this line here by holding shift, alt, and then moving it over. And I'm just going to move in services. I kind of have it snapping, so I don't really need the align all that much. So I'm just going to hold shift again, alt, move another one out here. Try and get that at about the same distance. Move up the contact. Alright. And then I'm just going to put another line out there. So you can see that you could easily have these menu elements all the way across here depending on how many things you needed, or you can make a horizontal one. This is just a brief idea of how you could set it up. Alright, so anyway, what we're going to do is now take, and I'm just going to zoom out, and we're going to take and put in some text and just some little elements that you might have. So what I'm going to do is grab my text tool, and I'm just going to click, and what we need to do is get some mock-up text, because I don't have anything here for us, because we're not making a real website. We're just kind of making a simple one that you guys can look at to understand how it's going to function. So I'm just going to go over to Internet Explorer here. I have lorem ipsum text, which if you haven't used this, it's basically gibberish text that's in Latin, and you can just copy that, go over to Flash, and I don't know where my text box went. We can just paste that in, and we can drop this down to, say, I don't know, 14 size font, and I might have to select it all. So we're just going to zoom out even more so that we can see all of this. You can see there's a lot of it. We can take and size that down to, say, 14, hit enter, and then we can take and with the text tool come over here, scale this in, and now we can zoom back into our document. And we're not going to be using all this text. We can take and move this right where we want it. And make sure that you're scaling this with the text tool and not something else, because if you don't have the text tool, it's going to be actually sizing your text weirdly. So you want to make sure that you're scaling your box with the text tool. So I think that's probably pretty good, and we can take and just delete the excess text. In reality, you would probably want to use a scroll function, which I have a component tutorial on that if you guys want to check that out. But just to keep it simple, we're just going to delete the excess there. So now you can see we have some text here like you might have on your home page. And we can bring in a couple images if we want. So I'm just going to go up to File, Import, Import to Library. And it's going to load this up. Alright, so I'm just going to bring in the green and red light bulb just to keep it simple. Go over to Library, and we can bring out this image here. And it's pretty huge, so I'm just going to go over to the free transform tool and scale this down quite a bit, and hold shift to keep it proportioned the same. And we'll just take and put this over here in this negative space. And so what I'm going to do here is just click on this image, go over to Properties, go to the width, copy that, and since I know that this red image, the red light bulb and the green light bulb are the same size, I can just drag out the red light bulb, go to the Properties, and paste that in, hit enter, and it will automatically make it the same size. Now we have to go find that because it goes to the corner point, so we can zoom back in to 50%, and you can kind of position those around so that they're at the same level. Again, I have the snapping on, but you can turn on align and get those just how you want them. So you can see you might have a little bit of a mock homepage here. So what we're going to do next is actually take and make the menu logos, or the menu and the logo and all this stuff that's up here in the navigation into buttons so that we can actually navigate through our site. So I'm just going to take and zoom in so that we can make sure we're selecting all of the right things. And so for the first home, you just want to make sure that all of these are flush here so that you don't have any excess text box going, because then when you start clicking on your things it'll be selecting other things. So all of these look like they're good. So we're just going to select home, hit F8, and you're going to want to go to button, and we're just going to call this one home, hit OK, and we're going to do the same thing for each of these other ones. So hit F8, about, hit F8, services, go to contact, hit F8, contact, and click OK. So now what we need to do is go back through these and add an instance name. So click on home, and an instance name of home_btn. And the reason that I always use the _btn is because sometimes what you name things as instance names actually turn out to be Actionscript. So I always add the _btn because they're never going to have this as an actual function in Actionscript. Like for example, if I named it stop or something like that, which is an actual thing that might actually be used, it might confuse the Actionscript and think that you want this document to stop rather than go to another frame or something. So that's why I always use the _btn. Just a little tip there. So now same thing, about _btn, services _btn, and contact _btn. Alright, so we can also take and use our little logo here. You might have a picture, you might have text, and regardless we can hit F8 on that, change it into, let's call it logo, as a button, and then we need to add an instance name of logo_btn. Alright, so now we should be good on that. What I'm going to show you next is how you can take and make all of this header into a template. So we're going to take and zoom out here to 50% again. I'm just going to take and select all of our header. Alright, so we have all of that, and what I'm going to do is go to Control X, and now it's all gone. And you guys are like, well, we just spent all that time making it. But what we're going to do is go up to Insert, New Symbol, go down to Movie Clip, and I'm going to call this header. Hit OK, and your screen is going to turn black. Now what you can do is go to Edit and then Paste in Place, and you can see that it pastes in all of this. So we're going to go back. You can see that there's two things here. We're within header, and we want to go back to scene 1 at the very top here. And now we can flip over to our library, and you can see that we have a new header movie clip. So we can just take and drag that out. And here's what you're going to want to do with this. You're just going to want to take and we can zoom in and just reposition this where we had it. And so we had it probably right about there, maybe a little higher. Alright, so now what we're going to do is take this, and I'm going to take and go to Edit Copy, and then we're going to be able to go to the next frame, and we're going to be setting up a frame for each of our pages. So we have our home frame, which is the first one, and then I'm going to go to the next one on our content layer, and then go to Insert Keyframe. Okay, or we'll do Insert Blank Keyframe just to make sure that we don't have anything on it. And we'll just remove this one because I want to Insert Keyframe. We'll do Insert Blank Keyframe and Insert Blank Keyframe. And then for our background, we'll just copy the first frame and then paste it out on frame 4 just to make sure that we have our background on all of our things. So now we still have, or I think we have it copied. We'll just select this again, Control C, and then we'll go out to frame 2. And it's very important that you go to Edit, Paste in Place. Otherwise it's going to paste it awkwardly, or it could paste it awkwardly. So I've always found that Edit, Paste in Place works better than just pasting it in general, because it'll place it in the exact same spot that it is on that first frame. So you can see now when we go through these that it will take and leave it in the exact same spot for each of those frames. So you may be wondering why we actually took and deleted it and made it its own movie clip. And the reason for that is that it basically made it into a template. And I'm a big fan of templates for anything. If you're using PHP, using includes is like using a template. And the benefit of it is that, let me just show you. So we'll go over to the library, and I'm just going to right click and go to edit. So let's say that we wanted to change something, and we wanted to change it on every page. So with having a template, our header movie clip, we can just double click into my website, and we can change it to say my website 1, or we can change it however we want. Now if we go back to scene 1, you can see it changed it to my website 1 on every single page, because that's where we've included this header movie clip. Alright, so now just think back, if we hadn't done that, you would have to recreate this on every page, and then say you wanted to make a small change to it, and you'd have to change that on each and every page instead of just changing it in one place. Now, it may not sound like a big deal for a 4-page website, but just think if you had 100 pages, you'd have to go and add the 1 on every single page. So by having basically an external area that you can change and it will update everything, it makes it very helpful. So we can just go back and do that and just change it back to my website 1, and it updates it everywhere. So again, to do that, I just went over to the library where we made our movie clip, right-clicked, and went to edit, and you can just edit it in your entire document wherever this movie clip was. Alright, so I think we are actually good to go for Actionscript now. Yeah, so let's add some Actionscript in. Alright. So here we go. Well, first, actually, I think we need to add in some text, because right now all of the second, third, and fourth pages look the same. So we'll just add some text. So we'll call it about, and then next frame, services, and the last frame, contact. So now you can see if we scrub through, you can see it changes, just so that we know that we're actually changing pages rather than staying on the same one, so that we don't have an issue with our actions. So what we're going to do is just type in first a stop action, and again, this is on the first frame. Actually, I put that in the wrong spot. We're going back to the timeline, and on our Actionscript layer, we're going to go to the first frame, click on it, go to Actions. If you don't have that, you can go to Window, then Actions. So I'm going to type in stop, open close parentheses, semicolon. I'm going to hit enter a couple times. And what we need to do is single out our buttons. So we're going to say home underscore btn, and then dot add event listener. And this is a capital E and a capital L. Well, it should be a capital L. And then we're going to have an open parenthesis. It's going to be a mouse event with a capital M and a capital E dot click in all caps. And then we need to put a comma, and then we need to make a function name. And since this is going to be our home button, we're going to say go home. Okay? And then close parentheses, semicolon. Now, this is how we would normally do a button, but since we put it inside of a movie clip, if you remember all the buttons are inside of a header movie clip, we need to basically tell it how to find that. So it can't just find the button, it needs to be able to follow a path in order to get to that button. So we're going to type at the very beginning header dot and then home btn. And I think we gave this a movie or an instance name. If we didn't, we need to do that. Yeah, we need to give it a header. We can just call it header underscore MC in order for that to work. And let's just make sure that it updates that on all the pages. Yeah, we'll just do that right now. MC. And we could probably include that into our template if we wanted to, so that we don't have to do this for each page. But we're just going to do header underscore MC, and that way it can find it on every single page. Okay. But it's just a little bit faster just to do that for now. So I'm going to go back to the actions, and so we're going to call it header underscore MC dot home button, and then we have our function. So now we need to write our function. So I'm going to go down and just say function, and then we called it go home. Alright, and then space, open parenthesis, it's an event, colon, mouse event, alright, close parenthesis, colon, void, open curly bracket, hit enter, Mine automatically adds the closing curly bracket, yours might not, so just check for that you have that there. And then what are we going to do once we want to go home? We're going to go to the first frame where all of our home data is. So we're going to say go to and stop, open close parentheses, semicolon. Inside the parentheses we're going to type a 1. Alright, so now while we're doing this, we can take and copy this original line here where we added the event listener, copy that, and just paste it below it. And since what we're going to do is basically link the logo back to the home page, because the logo normally goes to the home page. So we named it logo underscore BTN. So instead of home, we're just going to call it logo underscore BTN. And it's going to go to the same frame, so we can just use the same function over again. So now I'm just going to take and copy one of the event listeners and the function. And so then I'm just going to go down, hit enter a couple times, and paste that. So I have header MC, so header underscore movie clip dot logo underscore BTN. So I'm going to say logo, and I'm going to change that to about, so that we can use the about button. And instead of go home, we're going to say go about. And I can double click on that, copy it, double click down here and paste it. And we want it to go to frame 2. And now we can copy this whole function, and it's a little bit easier. We can just hit enter a couple times, paste it, and then we can change this one to services, and then go services, and copy that, paste it, and we'll change it to go to and stop frame 3. Copy this whole function again, and we'll do it for our last button. So we'll say contact instead of services, and go contact, and go contact, and frame 4. Alright, so now basically we have it going and stopping on each frame depending on which button is clicked. So if we go to Control Test Movie, Test, hopefully we don't have any errors. Alright, you can see everything seems to be working fine. We can take and click on the About page, and it goes to About. Click on Services, it goes to Services, Contact, and Home, and we'll go back to another page and click on the logo, and you can see it goes back to the home page. So now we have our little simple website going on here. It's nothing super special, graphically at least, but it definitely works, and you guys can build off of that. One thing I wanted to point out is we have a little bit of an issue here. By taking and making the text into a button rather than making a rectangle or something, when you make text into a button, it basically takes each letter and makes it part of the button, but leaves out anything that's not the letter. So if we go to About, and I go back to the Home, and I click in between on the O, on the very center there, you can see that it won't go to the Home. Because you have to actually click on an individual letter in order for it to work. So there's a way that we can fix that, and I'm just going to close this, go back to our library. We're going to be editing our header movie clip, so I'm going to right click, go to Edit, and then we can come down here. And what we can do is take, and on our home, since it's a button, we can go to our timeline, double click on that, and it'll open up all of the button things, and we can actually make a rollover if we want. I'll show you how to do that on one, but so that you guys understand. We'll just go down to, we'll right click on the first frame, go down to copy frames, paste on the over, and then go make sure that you click on it. It's very important when you're doing this that you make sure that the red playhead is on the actual frame. And then for the text that says home, go over to the properties, and we'll change that to, say, a light gray. So now when somebody's hovering over that, it'll change it to a different color. So anyway, we're going to go back to the original. We're going to right click and go to copy frame, go all the way over to hit paste, and then make sure that you click on it. Again, make sure that the red line is right on there. And then what we're going to do is basically just take and grab our rectangle tool, and we're just going to drag out a rectangle over the word home. And you might be like, why exactly are you doing that? Basically, we're doing that because on the hit state, what happens is that whatever is on the hit state, like graphically, which is now this rectangle, it's actually going to be where you can roll over it, where you can click it, everything like that. So it basically makes a little hot zone so that everything that happens with that button happens on that area. So instead of it being each individual letter, now it's this rectangle. So we can take and go back to the header, we can double click on About. I'm just going to right click Copy Frames, paste it on Hit, click on Hit, grab the rectangle tool, and we're just going to cover up About. And we can take and go back to Header, select Services, double click, Copy Frames, paste frames on Hit, grab our rectangle tool, make sure that you click on Hit again. We're going to go over Services. Basically just do this with each button. Copy the first frame, paste it on Hit, click on the Hit, go to the rectangle, and just go over Contact. So now, go back to Scene 1, Control Test Movie. Everything should be working much nicer. So you can see that if I go back to that little, you can see our rollover on Home, how it changes from white to light gray there. And if I go back to the little center of the O, which didn't work earlier, now it works. So that's just a little tip for you guys. The hit state is pretty helpful, and you can do some pretty cool things with it, but it also can solve some simple problems like that. So this is basically the simple website here. You can see that we can scroll through all these things, and you can add in your content however you want, design it up however you want. It functions pretty well. So I hope you guys learned something in this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and comment, and check back for a new video next week. Thanks for watching.